Hello and welcome to Goal Setting and Backwards Planning. This is my first time recording a training on the computer, so definitely bear with me. I'm going to try my best to go through this and make it as informational and painless as possible. I'm also going to try my best to not stumble around as I go through it. So definitely bear with me as we go through this process together. So for the goals of this training, we are going to be understanding the key points of backwards planning. We're going to be developing a goal in our backwards planning journey, and we're going to be discussing how backwards planning can help with assessment and the transfer of learning. So what is backwards planning? So we're going to go ahead and start with a little video here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pause that because I'm not sure that I included the ability to share video or share audio. So let me go ahead and do that again. Share sound.
C. The Super Gauge is a new tool that fits against any weird shape, object.
Imagine this. A group of friends decide to organise a day out. Katie is excited because she thinks a day at a folk festival would be perfect. Sam is excited because he sees everyone heading out of town for a long, peaceful bushwalk. And Sue is excited because she imagines the group visiting the snowfields and having their first ever ski lesson. The group arranges a meeting time, a place, then get busy with their own lives. On the appointed day, the three friends meet, pile into the car and set off. As time passes, Sam becomes grumpy because the group keeps driving past all of the exits to the best bushwalks. He wonders why he has his hiking boots on. A bit later, Sue becomes grumpy because Katie has turned off the highway away from the snowfields, and Sue is regretting putting her thermals on this morning. She wonders why she has been working so hard on her quads at the gym. An hour later, Katie pulls the car over and lets her friends know that she is lost. By the end of the day, none of the friends have achieved their goal. What if the three friends approach their day out differently? Katie, Sam and Sue get together to chat about what they would like to do. They decide on a common outcome for the day, plan what each will need to do to get ready, and what the group will do together to make sure the day out is a big success. As the weeks go past, the group talks often to make sure everyone is moving towards being able to participate in the day trip. Katie gets used to using contact lenses, while Sam buys a new wetsuit, and Sue speaks about working on her swimming skills. The group also plans what they will need to take, book the surf school, and organise how they will get to the beach. On the nominated day, the three friends meet, pile into the car, and set off. They reach the beach in time for their lesson and have a terrific day together. Backward design is like the second scenario. Teachers start unit planning with the end in mind. They consider the outcomes of a unit of work before mapping out how each individual student, and therefore the entire class, will get there. This way, the learning and teaching in the classroom gives every student the opportunity of reaching the final destination.
Okay, so that's kind of a quick overview of what background design is. And the nice thing that shows us is that we can use backwards design for more things than just education. So backwards design can be applied to anything. And the Stephen Covey book that actually all of us read here at PCI kind of talks about that. So one of the 7 principles is start with the end in mind. And so it can be applied to anything in your life, right? So starting with kind of where you want to go with that end piece in mind. What do you want to do? Where do you see this coming up with in the end? And applying that as you move forward with what you plan on doing can really be a powerful piece. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today with this backwards planning. So this can be particularly powerful in education because it helps us to align our activities with our curriculum to increase that learner transfer and helps increase that transfer of skills for our learners. So typically what ends up happening is we will identify content, then we brainstorm all the ideas, and then we teach that content and provide the instructions, and then we might come up with an assessment to see how our students do. So that's typically what ends up happening. But when we do that, we're not checking for alignment, and then we're not checking for alignment, and when those things don't match up, we're not seeing learner transfer. So what does backwards planning do? Backwards planning identifies desired goals and to accomplish those goals, determines acceptable evidence for that goal, and then helps us plan experiences and instruction on those goals. So why is this important? Too many of our courses and our curriculums just based on coverage, and it's not focused on specific goals for our learners. And a lot of that planning is done in isolation of our long-term goals. So we're not looking at what do they need to be doing by the end of the school year? What are their ICANN statements? What do the standards ask them to be able to do? And then because of this, our students tend to perform poorly on higher order tests or performance-based tasks, and then they're not transferring their learning. So what are the big ideas for the backwards planning? And this is from Understanding by Design, which came out from Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe in 2002. So the big ideas are that we want to have our backwards design, we want to do our understanding of transfer, and then we want to understand the meaning and making of the big ideas. And so this chart goes over what the big ideas are, why they're important, and what happens if we don't do them. So the big idea being backwards design, why it's important because the plan needs to be well aligned to be effective. What happens if it's not? We have an aimless activity that's, just there. So we're just doing things to do them. There's not a lot of coverage. We're just, flailing around doing activities. Our students are doing learning activities, but maybe not necessarily learning or retaining information. The big idea then being understanding transfer. Why is this important? Because this is why we're in school, right? Like the reason that we want our students to be in school, the reason that we do learning activities is to transfer learning, is to take this content and to put it into their brain so that they can continue to grow and learn. And so if they're not understanding and transferring this knowledge, then they're going to fail and they're going to not apply these concepts. And in the end, they're going to have those poor results. And so that's the point of that. And then being able to understand and make meaning of big concepts. And how this happens is by being able to transfer the learning to make connected concepts. And if that doesn't happen, then they're going to have fragmented learning, which means they're going to have pieces here and pieces there. And things might be less engaging for them as well. Okay, so content mastery is a means shaped by goals. So if content mastery is the means, what is the desired end? So what in the future should students be able to achieve? And why is it worth learning, and what is worth learning about it? So this is kind of what we're going to be looking at. So goals, right? So this is kind of the main chunk, that piece, that meaty part. How do we create these really rich transfers of learning for our students? By creating goals for them, by looking into the future and creating that goal for their future of I want them to be able to do this which is a second grade standard looking at their I can statement, and creating a goal around that and creating the content mastery and why it's worth being able to do that so that they can achieve it in the future. So, for example, backwards from coverage. So this is what a lot of teachers might have done in the past, or a lot of educators may have done in the past. You're looking at, okay, you know, we're going to learn about France. Awesome. That's a great idea. Like, why not learn about France? It's an amazing thing to think about. There's a lot of rich cultural activities to learn about, a lot of cool things that you can learn about France. But if you're thinking about coverage mindset and not just backwards design and transfer of information, then you might be looking at important sites. You might be learning about culture. You might be learning about language. Awesome. Like, those are really cool things to learn about. But you're not going to be looking at that deeper piece, which is where that goal is going to come in. Okay, so again, we're going to be looking at, is there a mean? And if so, what is the desired end? This doesn't have it. In the future, what should the students be able to achieve? That's not stated here. And why is this worth learning? And what of it is worth learning? So again, I want my students to learn about France, not stated in that statement. So that rich, meaty part of the goal, not stated in that statement. I want my students to learn about France. So we're talking about creating a rich, meaty goal. That is not stated here in this statement. Okay, so this is not really a goal statement. It describes some activities you might want your student to learn about, but it's not specific to that desired learning activity. It is not specific to a goal. It's more of a learning activity. It's content-based. It's coverage-based. It's not specific and backwards planning-based. Okay, so that brings us to goals versus skills. Okay, so thinking about how we want to word this, there's different ways that we can think about this. Skills are one way to think about how we want to develop goals. Now, we do want our students to have specific skills, but a skill is not a goal. So I want my students to learn to decode. Awesome, that's a great skill, but that is not a goal. So we want to ask ourselves, what is the point of that skill, right? And what is the goal? So we definitely want them to have that skill, but that is not a goal. So thinking about goals in a broader term, and we'll get to that in the next couple of slides, but I want my students to learn to decode, again, very content-based. That is a skill, it's an awesome skill, but it's not a goal. So thinking about, like, how do we develop that as a goal, and looking at those three things that we talked about just a second ago will help us to determine how we make that a goal. So thinking about things in terms of how to make it a true goal for backwards planning, we want to make sure that we're looking at how do we comprehend the true value of a goal. So for the decoding one that I just showed you, we're looking at that from taking it from a skill to a goal. We might say something like, students need to learn to decode. So we're going to break that into, why is it important? It's important because they need to learn to decode with other, this is mistyped, so I will have to fix that later. Bear with me though. Along with other skills in reading, to successfully comprehend and find value in what they read on their own. So we're not just saying, like, hey, I want my student to learn to decode, but why is it important? It's important because they need to be able to decode, because decoding leads to being able to read independently and to be able to comprehend. So it's not only going to give them the ability to read, but it's also going to give them the ability to comprehend, and then give them the ability to do it independently. So it's going to give them not one thing, but several things. And so that's not going to be a surface level or a content area. It's going to be an end goal. So we're looking, again, backwards planning. So that's going to be our end goal. And then we're going to work our way to that by planning several different activities. They're going to build up to that goal, that end goal. Okay, so underneath that, there's an activity or a closed statement that gives you the ability to be able to start creating some of these goals on your own. So I want students to learn, you would enter the specific relevant content that you would want your students to learn, so that they're able to understand and be able to on their own. So from this area, this would be something that you might put, I want my student to be able to multiply their numbers from 1 to 12 fluently so that they can understand multiplication in several different ways to be able to whatever it is along those lines on their own. Add, multiplication, do addition and subtraction to be able to multiply and divide, or understand the relationship between addition and subtraction to multiply and divide on their own. Something along those lines would also be appropriate for a 3rd, 4th grade level goal as well. So what I suggest would be taking the I can statements or looking at the standards for your grade level to create your backwards planning goals, starting with 1. This is a huge undertaking. Definitely starting with 1, starting with a content area or a curriculum area that you're currently working in also would be something that I would suggest. Don't like go out and be like, oh, I want to do all these awesome things because this is where I want my student to be. Start with something that you're currently working in, an area maybe that you're more familiar in or more comfortable with, would also be something that I would suggest. And then kind of look through those areas and start with something that you feel would be the most beneficial for your student, and then start working backwards from there. What is the goal that I want my student to achieve? How do I get there? Once you have that goal, then you're going to start breaking it down. What are the things that I need to do to get from this goal that I've set, to help them to achieve that goal? And that would be the next steps from that. So this particular training was mostly about getting ready to set that goal. We took the I can statements and we broke down and did a lot of goal setting and spent time on looking at the goals and looking at the I can statements and getting that goal setting together. We did talk a little bit about getting some of our goals together. But I did want to go ahead and let you guys know that you can't jump ahead. You can't do this unless you, you've got to try it, right? So, and one of the things that I want everyone to realize is that it's one of those things that connections in content, it happens as you use it. So, backwards design of curriculum follows the goals. When you make new connections and transfer, it's one of those things like when you're playing sports, right? Like you haven't gotten it unless you see it and you can use it in the game. So there's got to be some kind of like way for you to be able to assess the student's access or like way that they're using it in real life. So if your goal is multiplication of a certain number and there's no way that you're tracking that, there's no way for you to be able to see it and use it, there's no way for you to have known if they've gotten it. So that's a really important piece of this too. So set the goal, definitely think about how you would plan that out for how to achieve that goal. But then also know that there's no way to know if they've received it or gotten it if they're not using it. Okay, so big ideas, the goals, the outcome, the concepts to come away with, what is the specific understanding that they're going to need to know, and then what misunderstandings are predictable. So this is going to be more of the planning piece. So once you have your goal, you're going to take that goal. Remember, your goal is not an objective. This is not going to be like your planning a lesson plan. This is going to be your overarching goal. This is your plan to get to. This is where you want your student to be. This is what you want them to come away with. This is not facts they must know. what is specific understanding about this and understanding about them that is desired, and what are misunderstandings. So this part is really important. The misunderstandings is something that I think a lot of us miss, or things that we don't think about when we're teaching our students. Misunderstandings are often missed when we're teaching because we don't think about, like, oh, well, we're going to teach them all these things. But a lot of times misconceptions and misunderstandings can be just as important to come up and teach as well. So coming up, making sure that we are thinking about what misunderstandings might come up, especially social studies, science, that sort of thing, that might come up, misunderstandings in phonics and in reading, decoding, that sort of thing as well, that might come up when you're working on different things coming. And what are the predictable ones that you can think of, and making sure that you're listing those out when you're working on your planning. Okay, so after you have your goal, the next thing that you would do is you would backwards plan out your calendar for the year. You would use your goal to see where your student is at within your specific content area, and then you're going to track and monitor their growth within that goal, and just kind of go from there. There would be more trainings to come, just because doing some of the calendaring out and actually looking at how we would plan that out would be a much different training, and tracking and progress monitoring, also a very long and different planning training. So I look forward to working on those trainings with you in the future. But I hope you enjoyed this training on backwards planning overview and goal setting. And if you have any questions, you can definitely let me know by sending me an email to Ashley Hinkins, Pacific Charter .org, and I look forward to backwards planning with you. So, thank you.